we're charged with enforcing the laws. If someone's committing a crime, we take action, or we don't take action. We use discretion most of the time. We get called, you name it, and these guys can comment the types of calls they roll on. We get the complaints from the communities, we get complaints from the business centers, we get complaints from people that are homeless. We have a homeless outreach team that has been discussed earlier. We have officers dedicated to this issue full-time. We have a psychiatric emergency response team, which 5 days a week they are out and about with a psychological clinician who delivers services directly in the field with our officers. So we too, just like the other departments, are doing quite a lot. It is a huge impact. And again, I hope to get some time to talk about some specific issues that we can clean up, maybe address quickly if it has to do with property. But that's, in a nutshell, what the police department's doing.
From the code enforcement standpoint, we have a quality rental housing program, and that's citywide. It's not just related to transients, but anybody that is in rental units have to go through our program as far as the property owner's responsibility to make sure it's safe and secure housing for all. So making sure there's running water, hot water, heat, smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, those sort of things. And so it does affect a lot of the motel families because that does transition into the hotels and motels. So we do respond to a lot of substandard housing issues, whether it be from the motel families, from maybe people that have visited, or some of the outreach groups here have contacted us. Fair Housing has contacted us, police, fire. If there's anything that doesn't look like there's, you know, that common sense that we all have a standard of living and it's not meeting it, they contact us and we go in and make sure the property owners provide that. It kind of eliminates the fear of being evicted by the property owner by having this program. It's a proactive program, so we come out saying we're a part of this program, so nobody's called us. So it does help a little bit on that part of it. We also partner and team up with the police department on the abandoned property, so we're mainly the lead on marking property, booking the property. All of our field personnel receive training, similar psychiatric training, mental illness training, outreach training. So our field personnel are able to identify certain needs and know who to contact if there's if a transient happens to be coming up to retrieve their property and mentioning that they need some help, they're able to know where that contact is and do that. So we do go out with the police department, CityNet, and some other outreach teams to make sure that we stay abreast on that. We also, on abandoned property for private property. So we're marking and booking property on public property, but we also field a lot of complaints of abandoned property on private property. So maybe behind a 7-Eleven, or maybe a shopping center's called in and they want us to come pick them up, and we explain to them it's their responsibility to maintain their property, just as if their weeds are overgrown. But we do explain our resources available. Sometimes they know the transient because maybe they've been there for a while. So again, we provide resources or information that maybe they can steer that transient to some housing or resources. And if so, if they are responsive, then we'll contact the homeless outreach team to go make contact. But explaining the rights of private property owners versus public property.
When we first got into this, yes,
John, you want to talk about the check-in some?
or
do you want to do that?
Well, not necessarily. I'll have you do it, but I wanted to segue on how we got there. We talked earlier about best practices, and what we did was we sent, you know, we talked to people all over the country. We sent a team of folks. I think Grace was part of a group that went to Albuquerque. We've been very successful in a number of areas there. Of course, their average rent is what, $500 a month, and ours is about $18, which makes it a little more challenging. I immersed myself in the subject for a significant amount of time before all of these efforts kicked off. Spent a lot of time at La Palma Park talking to a lot of folks, and I discovered, for those of you who've heard of a couple of workshops I've done on this subject for the council, we found that personal property was a huge issue for our homeless residents. I even tell the story of Christmas Eve, on my way to a family function, stopping by La Palma and asking people why they didn't go to the shelter. Because it was raining, this was a couple of years ago, it was raining and they didn't go. And they said, well, because we can't bring our stuff with us to the shelter. Well, that's pretty sad. So what's the best practice there? And we started looking around and we discovered that the city of Costa Mesa had dealt with this problem at Lions Park, which is kind of like their La Palma Park. And one of the things they did was provide an accommodation for homeless people to be able to check their stuff in and be safe and clean and dry until they come back. And so you probably have better stats than I do out of off the top of my head on what that's doing. But what we found was that we engaged Mercy House, which is one of our partners, and they're people who run the shelters in Santa Ana and in Fullerton. The value added for that is in addition to checking in and checking out equipment, they also have trained counselors there that can provide referrals and support to them. Last I heard, we had about 300 unduplicated clients there. That's
We're up to 400.
we're up to 400 unduplicated clients, so that certainly shows a need. But that was a big issue that we could deal with pretty quickly. And it also opened the door for now someone who has appropriate training to be able to reach out to these people and offer them assistance and build trust to the point where they feel where they can bring those services to bear. The other thing we discovered while we were doing that were the number of people who were providing food in the park, and that was pretty surprising. Over 30 different organizations providing food just at their home, which was great. Didn't do one thing about keeping anybody off the street. We just kept them on the street for another day, which is great. But my friends there tell me that they were throwing food away because there was so much of it, and they were asking for more trash cans because they didn't have enough places to put the food that they were throwing away. It seemed to me like that maybe that was the next thing we could study as far as best practices. That led us to CityNet. A lot of resources being used, but the results that we were hoping for weren't happening. So maybe, did I didn't mean to step in on the shelter, but did you have anything you wanted to add on the check-in center?
I was going to talk about in terms of Mercy House and the fact that they're our contractor out there, and that they take all the belongings, they store everything. But in addition to that, they're out there providing outreach into the La Palma Park and the vicinity out there, and they're able to connect people with resources and services that are available. They coordinate food serving, so they're, instead of having 10 groups coming to feed on Monday, they try and coordinate everybody together and have a plan. So we have Monday, these are the groups that come out, Tuesday. So it's a little more even and coordinated effort there. The last thing, the one thing that they do also do is weekend projects. They'll have a large outreach. We have one coming up on February 7th, where they're going to have showers of blessings come out. And they are like an RV that's outfitted with showers, so the homeless can come and take some showers. They're attempting to get a medical van that would be out there to provide some medical services as well as the food. So in addition to the daily programming and services that they provide, they try and also do these monthly activities with some of the residents.
Can I also add the SoCal Day of Hope that we've been working with, a nonprofit group that's going to come in on April 18th at La Palma Park and provide a resource fair for Anaheim families, particularly those that are in the area of La Palma Park, that will have, again, food, shelter. They're actually planning on being able to give them resources to find where they can actually stay. They were talking about tents and stuff, what have you, but again, that's one of the things that they were looking at. But then also services, counseling services, mental health, on the spot that day on the 18th, and so that group also will be targeting La Palma Park and the residents in that area.
Can I say something to that? Regarding all this stuff, I found working with them, we do the food, and we do, like I said, spiritual prayer and all that stuff, but the most important thing that I've seen is if we start getting them plugged in, but we don't know where those plugs are.
Right.
We know that they exist, we've heard about them, but I know that one gentleman had a sheet that kind of showed where all the food was being served, but if we could put together something, or if there's something that exists that we can get, that people know where all this stuff exists, if we start getting them plugged in, because Mercy House is great, because that's where we do our food ministry, and there's people there, and then we just say, okay, this person needs a bus pass, and bam, the lady's right on it, they're getting the bus pass, they're on the way. Oh, they need this, we get in there, they need a cell phone, they're doing that, and if we just lead them to where the most of the time they drink, like they say, they need a horse for water, but
Right.
they don't always, but if we can start finding out where the plug-ins are, it's a success
That's a
rate.
wonderful segue into our collaborative, right?
Yeah.
A person who's homeless has one directive, and that's to
Right.
resolve the homeless issue
Yeah.
and get into a home behind a locked door. And in a sense, begin that healing. I've spent over 2 years living in my car, and that's a very scary place to be.
I'm sure.
Matter of fact, Mayor Giuliani with Central Park, and with the work that I did too, I followed with the community court in Santa Ana. They used to handle 100 or 200 cases a year, I believe, and now they're up to over 1,000. So, and I've sat in on the meetings, there are those feel-good AA meetings where somebody stands up and says, you know, I was gonna go to jail for years, and it was all over. But the community court gave them housing, gave them a job, gave them a second chance. And now these people are standing up saying, I'm here with my wife, my family, I have a home, and that life has been,
Not right there.
that life has been returned to the community,
Yeah.
which is.
You're aware that we have the same thing in Anaheim, right? We have a community court for homeless court in
Okay,
Anaheim.
Mhm.
well, I didn't realize there was one
Yeah.
specifically, and I have followed one, I've gone down into
Yeah.
Judge Lindley, I think she's retired recently, I didn't realize there was one
I
specifically.
think it's at, First Christian?
Yeah, Harbor and South.
Oh, my attorney's handled, he's talked about cases that he's
Yeah.
handled there.
And it's been very successful, but we don't. I'm not there as well.
So what we
Oh,
found,
please, thank you, that's very.
what we found in looking around, in the community, we started engaging these barriers to getting off the street. And again, it's great to feed somebody, it's wonderful, and it makes you feel good, and it sets a great example for others, just if you're teaching young people to have charity be part of their life. I think that's critically important, but we were very concerned that a lot of really good people were spending a lot of resources and not really getting close to solving the problem. And so once again, looking at best practices, we found City Net. And so Brad and Matt,
Yeah, so we are similar to Motel Collaborative, we're sort of a collaborative of resources that are trying to create awareness so that we can see what each other's got going, but we're also working together in the sense of in the last year we moved over 250, and when I say we, it means all the collaborators through various means. We've moved over 250 individuals off the streets we bumped into on parks, outreaches with the police department, on and on and on, through various sources. Those 250 had one or two organizations, agencies, churches, some collaborative effort around each of those situations to actually get them into the road to permanent housing. We were working for 1 year. So on a monthly basis, we hold collaborative meetings where we're sort of connecting resources and driving towards what can we do together to get these people off the streets. We also go deeper than that though, and we do collaborative case management where we actually are looking at situations and then we literally work amongst the collaborators to say what are we going to do to help this family or this situation. We also proactively go out in partnership with the police department. We are going out on a regular basis, weekly and monthly, to go out to places where there's situations. And so we proactively go out into the parks. For example, I've talked to our Joshua many times about whether many people are looking for help, some are not. Some are very comfortable, which is fine. So we'll ask them, if you're not interested in getting help, do you know anybody that we could help that you may know? So be an advocate on behalf of your neighbors, and let's work. So that's what we've been doing. It's been pretty successful.
and that even includes a wonderful partnership with the police department, sending folks home, reconnecting them with their families. I mean, I don't know how many states now have received, folks from our city that really just wanted to go home and all of a sudden the name of the organization, Coast to Coast Foundation. Right? Yes, Coast to Coast Foundation.
Perfect example is we just came from a church and we have $400 by church, $400. And so what that does is that gives resources to the police department so that they have options at their disposal. So they're not only just passing the hat. The truth is they are in some cases. But this gives them resource so a congregation would entrust so that 3 o'clock in the morning when they're not going to get the phone call, and the police department is out on the streets, they have resources at their disposal right there to access and do whatever they need to do to help those that they come in contact
And,
with. So.
a lot of times people just see the places that the ones out there enforcing the law, and oftentimes put in a position where some view us as the bad guys, but some of my officers, you know, working for the homeless outreach team and some of our liaisons, I can tell you that they, in the middle of the night, are going with a homeless individual, getting them in a hotel room, they're making that connection, they're finding a suitable relative or somebody out of state or wherever, and they're driving them to the bus station, coming in early the next day, they've driven them to the airport to make sure they got on the plane, okay? I mean, they're
Even got one gal's dog home with it too, right?
That's a piece of.
That's important, that's
So-
important.
I wanna
Some
sec-
officers have the passion that all of us have in this room for this, it's just really amazing.
I wanna second that because we just recently had a gentleman that showed up that was from Lebanon that came over to, his wife has breast cancer and he came to the United States to try and get help and to work. He had $1,700 in his bags, shows up in LAX, turns his back, they rip everything off, and he shows up at La Palma Park at the Mercy House on Tuesday. We pray in Jesus' name, we ask for some help. He was asking for just $100 to get, he was gonna take back, but he didn't know how he was gonna get back, to take that to his wife to show her that Jesus loved her. And then he was gonna get healing and he's gonna save that. And one of you guys, the police department, they worked together, and because his stuff got stolen, they ended up getting him a ticket and came and picked him up at the Mercy House and drove him to the LAX and sent him on his way with $100 for his wife. So I just wanted to back you guys up on that. I've seen it, saw it last week. So thank you.
Well, there's lots and lots, it's wonderful to hear those success stories. The wonderful thing about the group that City has helped us to put together is, has brought back existing partners and collaborators that have tackled other social issues in our community. But the thing I like the best about it is that we have lots of new people working with us that we didn't know, that we're here, and we're doing good work, but we didn't know about it, and they didn't know about us. And so the more people we have pulling in the same direction. But I can tell you, it pains me, as a person who's so vested in the city, to listen to the city get bashed for what they are not doing to help homeless people. We don't have new money falling out of the sky. This is money that's been reprioritized to deal with this issue. The police have a monumental task. Even if you took this part, and I don't mean to speak for you, but I mean as somebody who's, you know, has been on the sidelines of human services issues for 40 years here, the compassion and the dedication that I've seen in the people that have been assigned to do this has been phenomenal.
Can I share one thing?
Yeah, so you can share it all that you like, that's why we're here. But it is painful, and in most cases it's based on, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but just the word ignorance is not a person who's not intelligent, it's a person who's not aware. That oftentimes these comments are based on a lack of awareness. And, you know, we want as many people as possible to know, you know, that we take this issue seriously, that we have invested significant resources at the expense of many other things to try and make a difference here. And it really does get down, whether you're dealing with people on the street, it is a one-on-one thing. Well, it's a one-on-one thing here too. We're all around the room that we're just trying to, you know, educate each other and learn and be better at what we're doing. But I do take it personally when I hear that, you know, the city is not doing what it needs to be doing. Because I believe we're doing, you know, could we do more? Absolutely. The wonderful thing about advocacy is, and I look forward to a time when I can take my talents and efforts and put them in one particular area where I can really make a significant difference. But in the work that I do, what I try and do is empower and strengthen as many other people and organizations as possible to achieve those ends. I don't have the luxury to pick one. I have to deal with whatever happens to come in the door here or through our city borders, and then deal with those issues. You know, we have 1,000 families living in garages in Anaheim. You know, right now, we've got 10,000 homeless kids.
And we have deaths every year.
You know, we've had people die in our parks without any medical intervention from terrible diseases that you couldn't even imagine that someone would have to go through something like that. That pains all of us, regardless of what our disciplines are. We all want the same thing. So the final thing I wanted to talk about, two more things. The Anaheim Community Foundation, we have a fundraising arm that offers a tax-deductible donation to people who want to donate to these various efforts. And that's important because sometimes that will stimulate people to give for whatever their motivation is, but it does give them that benefit. I volunteer as the CEO of that organization, and board of directors. It has nothing to do with the city. It's a completely separate organization. And so resources are dedicated to providing the officers in the field with resources that they need to be able to help people get that gap between getting off the street and finding and getting permanent supportive housing or going home or whatever. Providing them with the resources they can immediately address that issue. And then finally, the macro issue, because I think there are two things probably missing in our community that we don't have in place. One is an emergency shelter that's year-round. We think that that's critically important. We think every city should have one. 18 months ago, the attitude was homelessness is a county issue. It has nothing to do with the city. Well, county's had a 10-year plan to end homelessness. They've made some significant strides. They hit significant barriers because of the whole concept of, well, we understand there's a need, we just don't put it in our city, anywhere near where I live. So we have partnered with the county. We've spent $3 million on a piece of land, which, while the decision has not been made yet on how that land could be used, it could be used for this purpose, but that would involve a significant amount of public input, which we think is pending soon, where we're going to propose not just a shelter, but an emergency, but a service center for homeless people that would be, in essence, functioned and staffed by the collaborative that we put together. So by the time the shelter opens, the service center could be fully operational from the first day. I think that would be our goal, is that all these organizations that form all these relationships, reprioritize their resources, gather their volunteer base, can now have a place where we can really get some stuff done.
A focus point like you
So that's one of the things that's missing, that we're working toward. And then we will hit significant a negative reaction when it comes forward, as it just happened in Santa Ana, as it happened last year in Fulton, and other places around the county. I'm sure we'll find that similar thing. That does not mean we're not going to try. The county's willing to come in and build and operate a shelter. They just don't want to go into a community where they're not wanted. And so what we need to do is find the right place where we can find that balance between making sure we're serving the public, but we're also serving this community as well. And so that remains to be seen. We'll be on the sidelines for that as we move through that process starting in the next couple of months. And then the final component is something that Josh touched on, and that's these transitional house living facilities, which is a whole issue unto itself within a community, because while we all understand that makes a huge difference, there is also significant public reaction to having sober living homes and so forth in people's neighborhoods. I mean, I have one right next door to our park, over at Founders Park. Never had any problems with the house next door, but I know that the people living there are struggling with their sobriety and finding support there, and that's a wonderful thing. Our ability to do something about that is limited, mostly because we don't have a redevelopment agency anymore, because they took it away. That was a significant source of money to develop some of the projects that Grace has been talking about. And we have made great strides in the last 10 years, 12 years, in providing more housing, affordable housing in this community. It's not to say there's not a long, we have a ways to go. So what you have in essence is an overview, I think now, if we're complete, of everything that we're doing to try and help this population. I would stack that up against any city in Southern California as far as what we're doing. Could we do more? Well, I think we're going in the right direction. But what we found in our best practices in every city that we looked at Seattle and Boston and Salt Lake City and Albuquerque and Portland, Ventura, Long Beach, this isn't all done by government. There's no model where government is solving a homeless problem anywhere in this country that we've been able to find. It takes a village. It takes a group of people working together, and that's what we're doing. So I asked at the beginning of this meeting for you to give some thought to what your goals are for today. There are friends, our advocacy friends that have joined us today. But what I hope now and in the future, that you'll now be operating from a position of knowledge about what we're doing. And then look for ways to, and if you don't like what we're doing, well, certainly the Constitution gives you the right to go and express yourself in whatever forum is available to you. We encourage you to do that. And we'll react, and we'll do the best we can to serve as many people in this community as possible. But I think now is the time to also enlist your help. If there's areas that you have suggestions, or if you're not part of any of these collaborative efforts, and we have a number of them, you're welcome to be part of it. And so now you asked to speak, and I'd like to turn it over to you guys, and what are the issues that, now that you know what we're doing, have at us.
Sure, okay. And no, this isn't
I'm not trying to immediately attack everybody in the room or anything like that. Maybe you were feeling that way, but
Not at all.
it's more, I think, also just trying to educate people from the perspective of a homeless person, since I've lived there among them and experienced kind of what happens sometimes. I think there's ignorance on both sides, because a lot of you haven't been homeless, possibly, and so you don't really know what it's like to be on the street like that, and what you deal with as far as public opinion, police. You know, it's not all. There's some police that are great out there, you know, that have done great work. You know, and then there's others that are, they basically kind of dehumanize you or treat you like a criminal just because you're poor. It seems like one time, what's that?
So I've seen that.
Yeah, and I was actually in front of the library one time, maybe like 4:30 in the morning, and you know, the officer actually, because I filed a report about complaint about this, and the officer actually said he was gonna, you know, talk to that officer about what they did, but I was frisked, I was asked a bunch of questions and treated like I just robbed a bank or was a suspect of some crime, and I'm just in the park opens at 5 a.m. So I'm sitting there in front of the library, you know, it's cold out, I'm just sitting there waiting for the park to open. I try not to break any laws or anything. In the city of Anaheim, there's really nowhere for you to go. You have no, especially in that area, as you know, there's no single shelter for single adults and that kind of thing. So I'm sitting there just trying to abide by the law, and I'm going to go in the park once it opens, and all this has happened. And I'm like going, wow, you know, why can't they just say, hey, need any help? Or, you know, I mean, I'm not breaking any laws. No one called the police on me. And it seemed like they were just kind of bored at the time and just figured I'd go, well, see, you know, see if we can find something on this guy. And I wasn't doing anything wrong. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, for me, it's just something that I know that other homeless people are experiencing, that kind of thing. You know, and not all police are like that. You know, and I know the other officers that come by and been really nice. If you need something, they got Clif Bars in their car or whatever, and they're offering that to me. And there's one officer, I think it's Officer Craig, I think his name is. I think you guys know who he is. Officer Craig, Scott Craig, I believe. Yeah, great. You know, he does amazing work out there. I love that guy. You know, and some of you too. You know, it's not like the kind of pointing the finger at every officer. But one time I was out in Maxwell Park, and the community comes out from the library, and I guess they got this flashlight day or whatever. They go out there with the residents, and they're flashing all their flashlights in the park at night. And they come to the homeless, and they're doing the same thing. And the homeless are kind of feeling like, wow, you know, for one thing, a lot of them are ashamed to be there in the first place. Now we got the community residents coming out flashing flashlights on everybody. And then the officer comes to me, I believe it's Officer Hampton's like, if you guys don't get out of here by 10:30, you're all going to jail. I mean, is that the kind of city of kindness that we're supposed to be, you know, that's not city of kindness to me, which is supposedly what Anaheim's supposed to be about. And so me and Hampton had quite a talk about that, and I just was like, what if, we all know the law here, you don't have to be, you know, coming at us like that. And another time I was in the park, an officer rolled up and said, and I had this on video, you know, comes up and says to the homeless people, that you guys, you know what, she was actually asking what time it was, and to the officer in a polite way, and the officer was like, it's time for you to leave. And it's like 7 p.m. in the park, you know, where are they supposed to go? You know what I mean? And they have a right to be there. So, and these are just certain officers, and it's not like all of them are like that, but I'm just saying that there's I think part of it is possibly a dehumanizing of some of the homeless. Sometimes I think sometimes some of the officers are like, well, they're all the same, they're all drug addicts, they're all this, we gotta hammer them, we gotta get them out of here. And that's the wrong mentality, because if they're part of the city and part of this community, you gotta come at them a different approach, a little more humble, I think, and not all officers are like that, but that's just something that, I think there's ignorance on that as far as what's happening. And I've tried to make people aware of that, you know, from a position of being as a homeless person by choice. You know, I used to be a math teacher for almost 4 years, and then God called me to travel and minister on the streets, and I've been doing this for many years, since 2002, and experienced a lot of this kind of, I guess, treatment. So my question is, could we provide a safe zone or something like that where people could sleep, you know, and make sure that it's a sober safe zone, make sure that there's a safe place, and that we have security there, of course, of some sort, you know, not a place where they can just sit there and shoot up, or, you know, I'm not in any way trying to advocate that or support that, but if people are just trying to exist, you know, and it's very difficult, if you're homeless in Anaheim, to just exist as far as sleeping. If you go to a park, you're gonna get a ticket. If you go outside of a park, they're gonna call the police on you and be like, hey, you can't be here in this business or whatever, because where else you gonna go? You gotta go to some other private property that hopefully they're not gonna call the police on you, you know? And then there's people sleeping in cars, and I got a friend of mine that that he was actually frisked, and he's just trying to, you know, be out of the way and sleep on this car on the sidewalk, you know, he pulled over to the side, and he's just trying to get some rest, and he gets frisked and pulled out of his car, and it's like, it just does a constant attack, you know, on people that are just trying to exist at night. You know, and they can't just disappear from, 10:30 to 5 or 6 a.m. when the park reopens, you know, they have to have somewhere to go. You know, it's just a real simple solution, and that's what they did in the city of Miami. The case was Ponder versus City of Miami, but they actually created a safe zone. They did a class action lawsuit, the ACLU versus, you know, the City of Miami, and it was that case Ponder versus City of Miami. But anyways, they won, and they ended up creating safe zones for the homeless to sleep, and it was quoted that you cannot be, you know, harassing or ticketing for quote-unquote life-sustaining activities, whether it be brushing your teeth or going to sleep in a public space. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And you see that in other cities right now, where they're trying to criminalize people for feeding the homeless and that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that Anaheim can kind of be on the front of actually creating a more progressive city that kind of intervenes in the situation versus, you know, just attacks people that are poor. I mean, I don't see why you can't come up with a couple parking lots, you know, and at least let people sleep there, because they're gonna sleep somewhere. You know, bottom line, they're gonna have to sleep somewhere, and they're gonna sleep somewhere. They're gonna sleep in the park, or they're gonna sleep at a business. Just give them somewhere to go, an option. And that's why I used to tell police, they'd come on me, and I'd be sleeping somewhere, where can I go? One officer did a great job. You know what she did? She took all my stuff, put it in the car, and drove me all the way to Buena Park, where the church will let you sleep, you know, outside their church. You know, I said, wow, that was cool for her to do that. She didn't just, you know, too bad, just go somewhere. She actually tried to solve the problem, you know, and that was really cool. And you know, some people need help like that. Another officer, I was actually in a private area because we can't sleep in the park, so we were sleeping outside in the private area. And he says, well, I asked him, can we sleep in the park? I mean, he's like, yeah, go ahead. You know, I know it's against the law, and you know, you probably frown on that maybe, but at least he gave an option. And then no one got hurt, you know, no property was damaged. We slept in the park, we had peace that night, and actually right now they're trying to get this California Homeless Bill of Rights passed, where it will be legal to sleep in public spaces, including parks. So, I mean, that's progressive to me, and it kind of helps to solve some of the issues, and it would relieve the police of having to deal with some of the silly stuff, like, you know, going to people that are sleeping outside, you know. I mean, why can't they be, you know, worrying about people that have guns or something like that, or that are really going to hurt somebody? You know what I mean? Why waste all their time and taxpayer money doing these types of things? And I think that maybe a little tweaking some of the laws might help to bring a relief to the police and what they have to do. And maybe not all the residents will be happy with the changes, but you're going to have to pay either way. You either have to pay with taxpayer money through, you know, having the police do all this stuff, through hospital visits, because, you know, people are getting sick out there and they can't stay healthy because they're getting shoved around everywhere and losing all their stuff all the time. You know, there's going to be hospital bills, there's going to be police money spent, you know, or create a safe area for them to sleep, and then pool the resources in there, kind of like an interim until you get that shelter going. Because right now, you know, there's no shelter, so I mean, I really am encouraging something to be created in the interim until that shelter arrives.
And that would help, I think, would help some of this 5,000 calls per month. If
Exactly.
the calls could be, then the area could be focused in one area.
Yeah.
You know, so you guys aren't running around all over Carnations answering all these calls on, you know, that pop up because they have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
They're focused, and the call's gonna be to the same place. You know,
Exactly.
I don't know
Maybe-
exactly, but, you know.
When I checked around, the holidays was really cold, or about 3 weeks ago. The Armory in Fullerton, as far as I know, hasn't ran out of bed space. Maybe someone correct me if I'm wrong. Neither, I don't think they've ever, that I know of yet, turned people away because they've been overbooked, so.
Well,
there
the
is
Mercy
still-
House representative said that at our last meeting, which was last Wednesday, said we have not turned anyone
Yeah.
away from the shelter
I
since
didn't
we
think so.
opened it.
So there is a place that exists, and there's transportation from La Palma Park.
There you go.
There is an issue, if they weren't able to check in their stuff, I've talked to a lot of homeless too, I don't wanna lose my stuff, there's no one I really trust to leave it with.
Exactly.
Sometimes leave with a friend, hey, I'm gonna go to the Armory, will you watch my stuff? I said, hey, I don't have a friend that I trust it with, so I'm not gonna go. I mean, that's an issue that, you're right, but the Armory, we need to really encourage people until, because this, even if this works, it's not gonna get worked out right now, to go, especially while it's cold, to get in somewhere safe.
Yeah, well, yeah, like with the Army, I've talked to some of the people, and one of the reasons they don't wanna go there is because it's so far from, you know, what they wanna do, or what they're doing, as far as maybe they have family ties closer to this area, like maybe by Maxwell Park or whatever. They don't wanna, like, lose their things, also they're worried about that, as far as going back and forth.
We're shooting to another city, we're talking about Anaheim.
Yeah.
It's Anaheim.
Yeah, but the bus brings it back real
Yeah.
early in the morning though, it is
And
early in the
we-
morning.
That's not an issue.
Supporting that shelter for
Yeah.
a couple of decades, this isn't
The
anything new,
Mercy
it's
House, the
just
Mercy
needs
House
to be year-round.
representatives are here? Someone from there, or anybody from Mercy House?
No,
or you
Mercy,
are?
Mercy House isn't here today.
Okay.
But it's safe, it's
Yeah,
safe,
because the
and it's
Mercy
a safe
House,
place, and
yeah.
it's warm, and, you know, you could get something to eat, and it's,
Yeah.
there may be a little bit of inconvenience, but it's a safe place.
Yeah, the problem is transportation. A lot of them don't have bus passes. It'd be great if there was a bus that would take people from Maxwell Park there, you know, because, you know, a lot of them don't have bus passes to go all the way there and back and all that.
And that's the other thing, like you said, yeah, it's, everything is harder when you're on the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, just to get one thing done, even if you have to go.
It's a
say to do it-
full-time, being homeless is a full-time job.
Just
Yeah.
trying to
Like
do
looking for a
anything that
job is a
normally
full-time
people
job,
would, just to
being-
brush your teeth is
Yeah,
ridiculous, just to try and
Yeah.
find a place to spit your,
yeah.
the white, you know,
Mhm.
everything's harder.
Yeah, and one suggestion I had too is if we could get a bus shuttle to them to get showers at the Salvation Army, because I know that the Salvation Army provides showers, but how they gonna get down there, especially from Maxwell Park, or Trial Reed, let's say, you know, and that's another issue. One of the main issues as far as, you have this resources in various areas, or maybe even outside the city, but do they have transportation there, and is it very efficient? And a lot of times they don't have a bus pass, or there's no, you know, there's no shuttle bus, unless you're right there next to it, like, whether it be in Hollow Park or.
And even a bus pass, when you got a shopping cart full of stuff.
Yeah,
you got a
that
shopping
too,
cart full
yeah.
of Bus pass, I mean.
Yeah, it's really,
Well, look, we're working with a couple of our units in our police department to come up with a homeless incentive reward program, okay? So, I don't know what it's gonna look like, but the gist is, we catch you doing something good, we catch you wearing your safety equipment while you're riding your bike, we catch you crossing the street using the crosswalk and not jaywalking, we catch you in a park not drinking and not using drugs. Thank you. And I punch your card after 5, 6 punches or stickers or whatever we come up with. Here's a bus pass, here's a food card,
That's
and
great.
here's a pair of socks, here's some clothes.
Mhm.
We're working on doing that, but at the same time, I need some cooperation. So I need you to abide by the laws and not be in the parks at night, because these are the reasons that the folks call us. Okay, we don't just go out there and look for people. I got a lot better things to do than writing an infraction ticket at 2:30 in the morning at a park. So we're complaint driven, we're out there because the community is asking us to be out there. Okay? So we're devising an incentive program to do just that. You behave, you abide by the laws, so I don't have to be called out there, you're rewarded. We're working on that. That's coming up with Coast to Coast here shortly. So
And
you
we are
might see
also,
that.
and we're also actively working toward trying to get that year-round shelter. These things, I mean, government wheels generally grind pretty slowly anyway. These guys down here work with a lot of different government agencies. Do we move pretty quickly in Anaheim, based on your experience with other cities?
Shockingly.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
fast.
yeah, I'm proud of that,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, because we're serious about engaging this issue.
I guess my issue, it's great that incentive program is happening, I think it's awesome, but the thing is, if someone is moving on the streets and they don't have, I guess, a history to get those punches, and they don't have a bus pass, they're still gonna be having to sleep somewhere.
Joshua, we're out there every week, one night, every week, with Coast to Coast and CityNet doing outreach. We only have a 3-hour block of time, so we try to hit the populations where we have they're most concentrated.
And I love that reward approach, because one of the biggest complaints I get from officers is, well, my job is to write tickets. My job is to do this. And well, the officer, let's just say, you know, like any business, he's gotta write 10 tickets. Well, that's because it's his job. If suddenly his job is to write 6 tickets and reward 4 people, and the city receives the same financial benefit.
I don't think it's really about financial.
No, but I
think
mean,
it's really-
just
we don't get-
as a business line, and I apologize for bringing that up, because that's not the ideal here, we're not talking dollars and cents here. The city has made concessions beyond belief. that have been described just on this table and that I've seen in the news and I see every day when I walk on the streets.
But what you're trying to say is the paradigm shifts a little bit from what their job responsibility is. Instead of doing this, they're doing something that's a little more helpful, which would encourage the whole growth of this whole.
So Pastor Scott brings up a good point, because, mind you, our homeless outreach team, it's not really a team, it's a duo. We have one sergeant and one officer. Now, we do have a homeless liaison officer training program that, we do have 7 patrol officers that voluntarily participate in the homeless liaison program. They get nothing out of it. There's no raise, there's no hazard pay, there's no incentive, no extra day off. But so during their patrol shifts, they, when they have time, they go out and try to engage with homeless folks and see how they can help. We've developed homeless liaison officer travel kits, if you will. So they can check them out, take them to the field with them, socks, hygiene kits, bus passes, food cards. So when they come across these folks, again, time and staffing permit, these things are disseminated. We have a log with hundreds of entries of things that are being distributed. But we only have 7 of those officers. We have a training class hopefully next month, where we're gonna bring on another dozen. But even then, that's 1920, we have 350 plus cops. So getting everybody on the same page with this mentality is gonna take time. And you're gonna get different approaches by different officers. And again, based on the type of, whatever their objective is for that moment in time. We're working on it. It's gonna take time.
I understand that.
And you know, one of the things about cops writing tickets in the park and contacting people late at night and stuff like that, a lot of that, contacting like your instance at 4 in the morning, I always encourage the officers, no matter who they're dealing with, to be professional, polite, and I always encourage them to explain after they're done. But I'd expect an officer to contact somebody at 3 in the morning that's sitting by a closed business or a closed library, like, hey, it's closed, what are you doing? You know what I mean, like, what's going on? It doesn't necessarily need to be derogatory, like, hey, how you doing, our library's closed, you know, instead of driving away and like the guy's waiting to case somebody out, get out of your car, talk to him. You know, so we encourage that. But in regards to writing tickets and stuff at the park, I just share this with you real quick because this is one I just got yesterday. But besides people just calling the police, residents write letters to the chief, to the mayor, to the council, complaining about the homeless issue. And this one I just got yesterday, to the mayor, and it was made its way to me. The whole neighborhood, and it's desperate plea for help, and there's a whole lot like this. The whole neighborhood facing, my name is whatever, I live here. The whole neighborhood is facing the Twilery Park. I'm writing you a desperate plea for help, the homeless situation I've been having to deal with for 2 years. Lately, it's gotten really bad. There are homeless and transients sleeping inside vans and SUVs and under trees, laying out their belongings next to the sidewalk across the street from my house. Every morning, I open my garage door, sending my child to school. Twilery is the park across the street. We would see homeless people urinate next to the sidewalk right in front of my children. If this is your neighborhood, right in front of your house, what would you do? I call the police every day, and they couldn't do anything about it. Please come visit the park and witness it for yourself. We, the people living in the neighborhood, need your help. Please help. You know, so, and this one's pretty mellow, but people are also, when the officers are going to the park at night to write a ticket, they're responding a lot of times to these things they get. You know, it's not necessarily like, hey, I got nothing to do, so I'm gonna go write a homeless person a ticket. It's far more complex than that.
Yeah, and the thing is, that, again, part of the homeless bill of rights is that they would have access to bathrooms 24/7. And that's a lot of times why you see people out there pooping or peeing or, you know, and not that I say that, you know, some of the things that the homeless do, of course, I'm not an advocate for. You know, a lot of them are out there addicted to stuff. You know, I'm not here to say, well, we should allow that. You know, let them get drunk out there, let them get high out there and shoot up and all that, or, you know, I'm not upset when police go out there and they bust people for having alcohol out there or drugs, and that's what you're supposed to do, in my opinion. But when it comes to the financial issue, I just can't afford somewhere to live, so I gotta sleep somewhere. And of course, if they're gonna look for somewhere to go, and a park is one place they can go, at least during the daytime. And if they're tired, they're gonna try and get some sleep. Should we be criminalizing people for just trying to sleep? And the neighbors might say, well, geez, look at these poor people out here trying to sleep. You know, but it seems to me that maybe they could try and maybe put themselves in their shoes a little bit, because that could be them, you know, in a week or so. They could lose their job and be on the street too. And how would you wanna be treated if you all of a sudden didn't have enough money, you just lost whatever, you know, and you're sitting there trying to find rest, and you're like, you know, I just want to lay down right now, and then boom, cops are there. You know what I mean?
But again, keep in mind, as I said earlier,
A lot of these are.
we do not have the luxury of being able to ignore the law, and to ignore our residents. We cannot just say, hey, that could be you, because I get it, I understand where you're coming from. But, you know, the things that I see when I'm out in the public, when I'm talking to community meetings, and I'm hearing the voices of these people, you know, who have every right to be, you know, she's sending her little girl to school, I got that same message, sending her girl to school that morning. There's two sets of restrooms at Reed Park. They're all open,
Yep.
clean and stocked by that time every day.
Oh.
There's absolutely no reason why anybody has to take a leak or a dump.
I'm not justifying that.
And I know you're not, but what I'm saying is it's difficult when you're talking to these parents to get them to understand that, just like we're trying to tell you, that it takes time to affect change. We believe that getting people indoors is the solution. That's the model, and that's where we're putting our efforts.
That's the nationwide
And I
model.
think it's important to understand, sometimes ticketing actually helps them get off the street. Because we run into a lot of them that have social security checks, and they go drink it up, or they booze it up, or they get their drugs. And so they are absolutely choosing to violate the law. And so by ticketing them, we've witnessed in our outreach program, someone come up and go, I'm tired of getting tickets, I will go home to my brother. And so it's educating, and we are putting ourselves and getting to know a lot of them just through the weekly outreach, where we know this is Joe, and we know Joe has social security checks that he gets, and we know Joe's addicted to this drug, and we know Joe likes to go this place, this place, this place. And so as we build that trust and relationship with them, we start letting them know, these are your choices, this is what your alternatives are, and when they choose the wrong one, there's a consequence for it. So a lot of times ticketing actually helps them get off the street.
Especially if they're going to the homeless court.
So even
Yeah,
though
the
some people may
community
be,
court and stuff,
even though some
they were-
people may be complaining about the ticketing, it does have an influence on what their decisions are gonna be. Because you have transients that, don't wanna be homeless and need help and want help. You have a big pool of transients that need help but don't know it yet and aren't sure if they want it because they don't trust you, and that's our biggest pool. And then you have that small pool where they don't care about anybody, they don't care about respecting anybody, they don't care about the neighborhood, and those are where we get a lot of the complaints. And so our biggest time is spent in that big pool of trying to trust and build relationships with some of these people that we know there's an alternative for them, they're just not seeing it yet. So tickets do help, I've seen it in action.
I mean, sometimes the system does, I'll give you examples of other ways where that works. People with, you know, severe mental illness. My mother had undiagnosed Alzheimer's. I could not force her to go to a doctor and be checked. She had to go of her own volition. I can't force her to do something. She abused her husband horribly because of this disease. I called in a domestic violence complaint. The police came. The city that she lives in has a PACE program. They brought a mental health clinician with her, did a quick workup on her, knew exactly what the problem was. They didn't take her to jail. They took her to the hospital, and now she's doing much better. But you know, the reality is, without the system, I could not get her into the system to get treatment. It's like when you have a shelter that has beds, but you have to be sober before you can sleep in the bed. That makes me crazy, because I know people that have tried to be sober, and it's really hard, you know. And so it's kind of a chicken or the egg type of thing. But really, sometimes the system is the thing that makes a difference, and you have to draw the line someplace.
That was the thing too, the registered didn't,